Hey, aloha offline sharks. How we doing? Welcome to our Friday Marketing Jam live shark show. I'm here with Nick. What's up, Nick?
Hey, everybody.
We're having better days today. We're excited to be here. Yeah, I see we got a couple people on. Just put in the comments that you can hear us, you can see us, maybe tell us where you're coming in from, and we're going to hang out here for about an hour and talk local marketing, talk some business stuff. So it's going to be exciting.
Did I tell you that I'm looking for office space, another office space?
No.
I'm thinking about it. I'm looking. I went up to the tech park the other day.
Yeah.
And I went into the building where, what's his name? Don has an office.
Yep.
And I actually went and looked at spaces there. And they're not that good, honestly.
Yeah. I've thought about us getting an office up there.
Huh?
I've thought about us getting an office up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing about that place is they're affordable. They're not like crazy expensive, and then they have a co-working space. But really it's just what I'm looking for this, and maybe we should talk more about it. Maybe we'll get a bigger office.
Yeah, bigger's always better.
Big one, a huge one. But what I'm thinking is like I've brought another person into my agency to help with sales, and I think a space where we can collaborate on what's going on with that would be good. We'd be able to react in a much quicker time. With desks in the same room and discussion being had there. So I don't know though. I'm a little nervous about it, right? Because you don't want to take the plunge. You don't want to spend a bunch of money for an office space. I mean, you have to make sure that it's going to produce results. But I mean, you know how I am. Like I take my time with that stuff, and I try to think about it for a while. And I've been thinking about it, and I think I found a way to really limit the risk, which is, tying the new guy some of his pay into sales, so we can bring in more clients to pay for that new expense.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring this up about the office space and what that brings to the business, because one of the things that
wait, your daughter wants the office at your house.
No. They would love having two rooms. Like they're starting to talk about that. But one of the things that I'm going to talk about today is kind of a mindset thing that I've been thinking about in terms of when I had a job, a real job, and like my struggles to break out of that. And this thing of the office kind of ties into that. But we'll talk about that here in a minute, because it was like I saw a couple of people posting in the Facebook group about, a paycheck is, what did they say? They said something like a paycheck is the
it's like a guaranteed way to hold you hostage or something.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, and I was thinking a lot about that, like just kind of my view on those things. And I guess I could talk a little bit about, hey, aloha, Cheryl.
Yeah.
I see she's in there. Awesome. Yeah, one of the things that it reminded me of was like, so when I had a quote real job of being a restaurant manager, right? Like, and I was trying to get a business going on the side. Like my mindset about the difference between the two was really, really stark. And like, I didn't realize it at the time. And what I mean by that is like, I wasn't late for my job. Like being late for my job was like really super bad. I did everything in my power to not be late, right? Like if my car broke down and I needed to get it fixed, because that's how I got back and forth to work, like, man, I did whatever was necessary to get the money to get that car fixed so that I could get to that job, right? Yet when it came to working on my own business, something that would give me all the things that I said I wanted, I didn't have that same commitment. right?
Mm.
And I don't even really know how to explain it. It was like they were just two entirely different things to me in my mind. And my business was something that I just worked on when I got there, right? Like, okay, when I have the time to do it, when I have the money to do it, was like it was always negotiable, I guess is the term, where my real job was not negotiable. And so really a big part for me to waking up to entrepreneurship and building a business was getting out of that defeating mindset that like if at the time, and I'll talk about this a little more in a minute, but if at the time, if I had applied that same commitment to building and growing my business, I would have been able to probably get going and get started and grow a lot sooner than I did, but I just couldn't. Like I was scared. I had all the reasons, it's just a scary thing, right? Like that paycheck is guaranteed. It comes in every month. You don't want to do anything to mess that up. And like, I just didn't think that way about my business. And so I was thinking a lot about that. And I think a lot of people have that same kind of view about things. Like you don't realize it. You don't realize that you're viewing them differently. Like you're putting way more importance on this thing that keeps you in this place where you say you don't want to be. Where if you were to just shift and put that same kind of focus into what you're doing. And I saw somebody in the Facebook group, I'm pretty sure it was our Facebook group, talking about how like, they're so dedicated to their job, yet they're not dedicated to their business, right? The business that they say they're trying to grow and the lifestyle that they say they want. And I know it's a balancing act. Like I'm not recommending that people just quit their job and dive head first into a business, but like I think it's something to be aware of, and you have to really start, part of becoming an entrepreneur and growing is really like one, taking responsibility for your actions and your situation, right? Like whether you at the current time don't believe you're responsible or not, the reality is you are. So taking responsibility. And then the second thing is really taking a hard look at your behaviors. Like what are you doing consistently, and, we were talking about a routine, like getting in a routine and stuff like that. And it's like people are in a routine, whether they know it or not. It's just the routine they're in isn't producing the results they want. But the thing they don't think to do is change their routine, right? So there can be a big blind spot there. So I'm hoping by bringing this up on this call that it just starts to get you aware, right? That you just start to be aware of that and start looking at some of your behaviors and go, well, man, why do I view it this way? Right. And then what do I need to do to change that? Like, how can I shift my thinking so that it's the right way around? Right. So we'll talk about that a little more though.
Yeah. I think for most people, really, it's just the accountability. Don't you think?
Accountability is a big part of it. Like, like one thing about, like I had this vision before I was really had my own business. I had this vision that was like, actually it was a fantasy. It was a fantasy that the entrepreneur life was like this undisciplined life where you just got to do whatever you wanted. You didn't have, you could just make your own commitment, you just did what you wanted. And like the reality is that's not the case. Like you still have commitments, you still have places you have to be, you still have things you have to do. You're not totally just operating freely, but the rewards of that are different. Like you have more control of your schedule and other things like that. So I think it's definitely worth it. But that was just a fantasy I had, right? Like, oh yeah, that's just what you do. And the reality is if you're going to really build a business and be successful, you're going to take on more responsibility. And so how do you start? For me, it was how do I start developing that discipline to do those things? And it has been a very slow, gradual process of coming to those realizations and changing that stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I see people are coming on. Hey, aloha, John. It's from Australia. Dave. Yeah, Jay, welcome everybody. Maybe what we should do is like, why don't we go ahead and do some shark shout outs? And we always
Sure.
like to start with those. And let me put up our little banner there. So you got any you want to start off with?
Well, yeah. So this is what everybody's been looking at here already is, that quote that Matthew posted in the group. Your salary is the bribe they give you to forget your dreams.
Right.
And that's what we were just talking about, everybody who just got on the call. But, there's some underlining stuff here about Matthew's post. And the big thing is that he's a level 12 hammerhead now. Or actually, I think hammerhead's level 10, and only 12 people have earned that level, which is awesome,
Yeah.
And I think for him, he goes on to say in his post that, for him, the reason he's making the money online is because, his salary as a teacher wasn't quite doing it, and he's got cancer. So he has this big motivating force behind him, pushing him to do that, to do better, to go on each day, to make, a little bit more progress each and every day. And that, it doesn't matter what it is. Everybody's got their own motivating reasons, but most people, I think they have it for a little while and then it goes away. It's like when the new year rolls around, right? Everybody's excited to lose weight and make more money. Those are the two big trends.
Yeah.
And, over time it just tapers off, and it might be because your why you're doing it isn't big enough for you. Like maybe you have the comfort of another job that, that is your routine that you just kind of fall back into. And, there are a lot of days for me where, man, even as a business owner, entrepreneur, whatever, I'm like looking at my calendar and I'm like, I can't even think about all of the shit that I have to do, right? And I just put my head down and I do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And there are many days where I'm like, I did this to myself.
Yeah. Like, why am I doing this to myself? Yeah.
And you know what's different for me is that in that situation, since I have no excuse, like I said, I did it to myself. I have nobody to say, oh, it's my boss's fault. I hate my boss. I hate my job, whatever. I mean, that guy is me. So I just put my head down and shut up and do it, and I've found a certain level of self-awareness in that I'm probably not the best employee, like working for other people, just because I don't feel totally invested in, taking the bribe, the salary bribe, working on somebody else's dream. Now, when it's my dream, like I'll work, till the end of the earth to make sure that it's going to be successful and I see it through, or I'm going to die trying and then I'm going to figure out what to do next, So having those days where it's just one thing after another, they don't feel as bad. And I don't know about you, but they don't feel as bad as having to set your alarm clock at 5 a.m. every day to wake up to go to some job you don't want to do. I mean, I would trade those things any day,
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because like one of the things I was thinking about too on this call is like the start of 2020 has been a little bit of a rocky start for us. Like there are a lot of things that at the beginning that have not really gone our way. Like a couple of projects we're working on where we were supposed to get the money and we didn't get the money, and it's like a significant amount of money and that we should have gotten. And then the other part of that too is like, so dealing with that, and then I had this idea of like, okay, when the new year starts, I'm going to get in. I had this routine that I want to do this. I'd laid out this time schedule of what I was going to do with my day, how I was going to set it up. And like, I haven't been able to do it once, right? Like not once. And today's the 10th, right? So it's like, how do you deal with those kinds of things and those setbacks? And I think what you said is, one, keeping your why you're doing this in mind is super important. And then the other thing is like, just not letting that totally derail you, just saying, okay, look, again, looking at, okay, what behaviors am I doing that maybe can affect this? Like, so I have a choice, right? I can either moan and groan and go around and tell everybody how the people didn't send the money they were supposed to and blah, 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 blah. Or do I put my head down and say, okay, well, the situation is what it is. And now how do we continue to move forward if those things don't work out? And, for a long time, I would just let that stuff derail me, and now I don't, because like, again, I have that why, and I like doing this. And so some days it doesn't feel fun, but like you power through those days and you get through them. One thing that has helped me is, so sometimes when I leave my house in the morning, like the garbage truck is going by picking up all the trash cans. And so there's been a couple mornings when I'm getting in my car and I'm like all grumpy, moany, groany about what I got to do and why am I up this early? And it's like, and then I see that garbage truck and I think, I could be doing that. Like, not that there's anything wrong with doing that. Like, that's a great paying job. Those guys make a lot of money. A lot of them do really well doing that. But like, that's not a job that I really want to do. Right. And again, they're working for somebody else. But like, I'm as bad as I feel my situation is at the time, it's really not, right? Like, it's really not. And so I just have to refocus and be like, okay, well, what are the action steps I can take? What are the things I can do to take responsibility for this and continue to move forward?
Yeah. So congratulations, Matthew. Good job on keeping up keeping the pace going for your business. The other shout out that I thought would be good was to Christopher Brunning. He's a member of the Shark Alliance. Any tips regarding attending a BNI meeting for the first time? I just got invited to a meeting tomorrow. Already working on if you were going to say, get a haircut, hippie. That's just his initial post. What's so amazing about this post from Christopher is that he went.
Yeah.
You'll see here on the bottom, he says that meeting this morning seemed good and they have an opening for him in the group. Also, the location is close to his house. So, that's really what separates most people from doing this. A lot of people say, I'm going to go to a networking group. I'm going to talk to that lead, that prospect. I'm going to cold call. I'm going to send an email. I'm going to do, whatever's in the level 5 requirement of me to contact my prospecting list. But the real work is actually doing it, waking up that morning, brushing your teeth, getting out of bed, and going down to that BNI meeting and being like, hey, I'm here to network.
Yeah, here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And the other thing that I think is really good about his post, because we were kind of talking about self-awareness, right? Like, So I'm not saying that you need to change who you are, right? Like, but you need to be aware of things about you and how other people perceive those things, right? And when you're in business environments, most people, there's some type of, I guess I don't know if you'd call it a norm, but like there's things people expect, right? And like you also have to take a look at yourself and be like, if I walked into a room with the people that I want to be my clients, like, would they react to me in the way that I want, or would I be coming at a position that's hard to set up? I don't know if that makes sense. Like, again, I'm not saying you gotta.
That's me walking into a meeting.
Yeah, like you want, people like to do business with people that are like them, and I'm not saying that you got to go around and please everybody and try to fit in, but you do have to be aware of the social norms, the business professional attitude, how to interact with those people. Because I know, like, we deal with a lot of high performers, right? And one really scary thing that I never realized is like when somebody comes along and they try to build a relationship with somebody that's a high performer and they don't do their part, they don't act in a way that is like that is congruent with how that high performer does business, there's no big like fallout. The high performer just doesn't ever talk to them again because they got stuff to do. Like they're on a mission. They're getting things done. And so you just never hear from them again. And it's like that is like, wow. Okay. So you want to make sure if those are the kind of people you're going to be dealing with, like look at, if your target is going to be real estate agents, like look around at real estate agents in your area. Like, how do they dress? What do they act like? Like, how do they conduct their businesses? Like they're in a professional style business, right? And you need to make sure that what you're projecting to them is congruent with that. Now, if you're going to work with other types of businesses, that all shifts, right? Like service contractors, other things like that. You don't have to be, that aggressive. So like, but you want to, it's that thing of being self-aware. You want to at least be aware of that. Like at least be aware that, hey, maybe the way that I'm carrying myself or the things I'm doing isn't congruent with what they're used to. So how am I going to overcome? Like you need to have a strategy for that, right? Like what am I going to do that overcomes that? Like, am I able to show them results so that it doesn't really matter to them because I'm delivering results, right? So I think that's super important. And that's one thing that I did early on was look around and be like, okay, well, what do business owners, I'm going to go around saying I'm a business owner. What do other business owners, what do they dress like? What do they, where do they go? Where do they hang out? What do they do? Like, and work that stuff in. And also being very aware of my professional behavior, right? Like, am I doing it right? And I don't always get that right because I'm a sarcastic, joking kind of guy. And so sometimes I just cross the line.
But you do start to think, or at least I do, I start to get this idea. I remember first starting out where I would start to think about like, well, if I were to be contracting or hiring somebody to do some type of advertising or marketing for me, what type of person would I want to be, buying these products or services from? Somebody that, shows up late, or somebody that shows up 5 minutes early, or, somebody that is, not organized, or somebody that's extremely organized. Those little things, those little details, I think make a big difference. And if you put a little bit of thought into them when you're, going about your collective day, meeting with customers, meeting with prospects, sending email, you're on the phone, you set up a phone call, you're on time, things like that. It really all makes a difference. And especially as you start to get to different levels, when you start interacting with, like Tom was saying, top producers, top performers, which, by the way, if Tom ever goes dark on you, you know what's up. So, that happens. Like when you're dealing with people at that level too, higher price points and whatnot. I think those things are they're even more in play. So,
yeah, well, and two, like you're not going to be able to turn it on and off. So you really have to look at your behavior in all situations, not just in business situations, and how you deal with other businesses as well. Because like one thing that like Nick knows, this really just like got my goat. That's an Oklahoma phrase. Got my goat. It really got my goat because
got your goat.
Somebody. Yeah, that's a phrase they say. Got your goat. It got your goat. Like it upset me. Like it bothered me because somebody sent in an email about something they had bought from us, right? And it was really like kind of just short, like, hey, what is this thing I bought from you? And so I responded in a professional way. Like I said, hey, look, like I looked up your records. This is what you bought from us. Here's the date you bought it from us. If you don't have your login access, here's your login access. Thanks for being a shark. We look forward to helping you in 2020. And then the person emails me back with like this really super, like, it wasn't, I think it was super, but it was a personal attack.
He trolled you.
He trolled me like a personal, like instead of just saying, hey, well, could I get a refund for that? Like they just they just didn't do that. And like, man, it was like I sat in front of my computer for like 10 minutes before I responded to the person, because like I wanted to just like unload, right? And be like, listen, if this is the way you're going to treat people, like you're never going to be successful. You might as well just get out of this business. Not like there were all these things I wanted to say. And, you know, and it was just like, I had to really compose myself. And then I just sent them a response that was like, hey, I refunded your purchase. Have a great day. Like, but man, it really, it bugged me. And
Mark said no one can get your goat until you tell them where it's tied up. I guess where it's tied up.
Well, and what was so weird about it was like the person said that they didn't really know who we were, yet the derogatory comment they made to me was like about something that only somebody that is in our community and following us for a while would even know to make a comment about. Right. It was like, it was just really, because they basically went after me for my weight. Right. Cause I've lost a lot of weight, and, yeah. So they called me, what did they say? They called me pudgy. Judging from your pudgy pictures. I was like, and it was just totally like, what? It was just, it was mean is what it was. It was just, it was unprofessional and like uncalled for. And I don't understand like what drove them to do that, but the reality is I don't think that person's ever going to be successful. Like they're not operating in that manner, because there's no way they're going to be able to turn that on and off, you know? And I really believe like what you put out there, you get back, you know, and the actions that you take cause people to act other certain ways. And
yeah.
Anyway, it just, it really got me. But then again, and that's so we have these other things going on in 2020, and then that happens. And I was like, oh, this year is off to a horrible. It's like, again, see, I've got to recalibrate and keep my eye on the prize and realize that, hey, not everybody, and this is true with local clients too. Not everybody's going to be happy, even when you do your best and do everything you're supposed to do. Not everybody's going to be happy with what you're doing, right? And sometimes you're going to do your part and it's going to deliver a result for them, and they're just not going to want to follow through. And so they're going to do some irrational thing to you to try to justify why they're doing what they're doing, you know? And you just have to be aware that there are people out there like that, and just as best as you can, just like brush it off your shoulder. And again, keep moving forward. So yeah. And Jeff, you're right. Never respond in anger.
So,
yeah.
Hey, David's here. How's it going, David?
Hey, David.
Dave says that he had to make a number of dramatic shifts to be who he is today. He prospects for 2 hours every other day. Never did that before. I have people asking me for proposals, and I used to think that I'd have to give away the farm. Congrats, Dave.
Yeah, and that too is a common thing a lot of us go through in the beginning. Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
He also says in his proposals that they have to have good chemistry.
Yeah. Well, we talk about that sometimes in our we talk about that in our training sometimes. Is like, it's not just about the client interviewing you, it's also about you interviewing the client. And again, it's that sanity we're talking about. Like we were just dealing with a client the other day, and it was like Nick and I had to come to that realization that like the way that the client was proceeding was throwing up all kinds of red flags that they were going to be a pain in the ass. And so we were like, is our sanity worth dealing with this client? No. So we just let it go. Like, we're not going to chase down business. You know what I mean? Like, you may think like, yeah, I need the money, but the reality is like the stress and stuff that comes with it, it's not worth it. It's better to just let it go and work on getting another client, one that's a better fit.
Yeah. I mean, everybody should and will probably eventually at some point go through one of those client experiences where it's absolute nightmare. And once you do, then you start to really you develop the eye for those types of clients. I would say my eye is pretty good, but and I have a process for weeding those types of people out. But obviously some can still get through. I actually did have one happen pretty recently, the other day. Gosh, I refunded him his money. I won't even go there. I won't even go there.
But it feels good to be able to do that, right? And it's going to be better for your sanity. Like, it may be a hit at the time, but it's like, it's so worth it.
That's what you do. I just refunded him his money. He was like, look, I don't think this is working out. I'll talk to you later. See ya.
I've done that before too. Like I've done that before too. And it was like, yep, here's your money back and see you later. Yeah. It's like, it's good. Now that we've scared the bejesus out of anybody who's trying to start a digital agency that doesn't have clients.
Let's answer a couple of these questions real quick.
Sure.
Paul says, do you offer an exclusion zone around a client? Example says, you've worked on a hairdresser's website to get them on page 1. Does that mean that you shouldn't take on another website in the same location? Do you charge to have an exclusion zone around a business? That's a really good question, Paula. And I think it comes down to preference. For me, if I'm going to take on a specific industry or like a hairdresser, a niche, for example, and I'm only going to service that one client, I personally would like to have them pay me for me to be exclusive working with them. And the way that kind of works is, like, I can do marketing for her and I can do marketing for another hairdresser. They're both going to get the results of my marketing, but it's not really about me being I need them to pay me to work exclusively with them. I'm going to produce results for both of them, and that should really have nothing to do with either of them, unless they want it to be, right? If they have that desire to make less competition for themselves, then I think you should be compensated for that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the other thing that is a part of that is, like, there's more. There's more than one result on page 1 of Google.
Yep.
Right. There's more than one listing in the maps. So, like, I don't know why you should tie your hands when you can get clients up there, right? And and you're right. If they want you to be exclusive, if they see the value in what you're doing, then they should pay for that.
Mm-hmm. This is pretty funny. Joanna says that she's happy with us. Appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate that.
But she also says that she feels like she's in a relationship with RJ. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, our support team. Yeah. Hey, can I share my screen for a quick second before we do any more?
Sure.
Question and answers here, because I want to. This kind of ties into what we were talking about, but first here. So I brought up this picture because today is my daughter's 13th birthday. She turned 13 today. I officially have a teenager, and I found this picture. Yeah, I found this picture, but this is what got me thinking about the mindset and all the difference in how I viewed things back then, because, like, this is one of my favorite pictures of Paige when she was a baby, and, like, it's a super cute picture, but I want to show you guys the reality of this picture, okay? And this ties into all the things that we've been talking about. So when this picture was taken, I had been fired from a job, and I had found a new job because I needed to have a job. I had a new baby. Paige is my firstborn. So I had this new baby and I needed to provide for them. And this room is the front room of my mom's house. So, like, she took out all her furniture so that we could put a crib in there, and we put this bed in there. And so to say, like, this was a distressing time, I guess is what I'm getting at, right? And, like, it just got me thinking about, like, this guy in this picture just didn't really even realize that, right? Like, so focused on the wrong things, and not being willing to put the discipline in to change things. And so, at the time, I think it was a I mean, it was what I needed to do, right? Because sometimes you just gotta do what's best for your family. But like, I think about the time I wasted in that, because again, instead of being like, hey, you can get fired from a job anytime, like maybe you need to build something else up on the side. I didn't do that. I just thought, oh, well, another job will fix it, right? And so this is what got me thinking about all that stuff, was looking at this picture, because it's like, I know the story behind this picture, right? And yeah, it's like, again, just like I kind of said in the beginning, this whole thing has been a process, a slow, gradual process of me waking up and like, and developing and becoming the type of person that can be an entrepreneur and do those things. And again, it has really started with like looking at, like when this picture was taken, I wasn't looking at my behaviors. Like I didn't have any idea that I was putting all this value on, you know, being on time for my job and doing a good job and all that. And that if I applied that same mindset to growing a business, I could grow a business. Like that didn't even cross my mind, because I wasn't really looking at my behavior, right? I wanted to do something different, but I wasn't willing to really change things and take a step. And one of the things that I think that kind of came to mind when I was thinking about this is like, you know, sometimes if you want to get better or you want to get to best, you've got to let go of the good, right? And that can be really scary. So
would you say that's
normal?
Would you say that was in this situation then? Was that like your
I was holding on to the good.
Yeah.
Like it was good. Like it was good.
Your job. You're talking about your job.
Yeah, my job. Like I was holding on to the good, and it's like, you know, the better was out there, and I could have been taking steps to get the better, but I wasn't, because I was too you know, surrounded by the good, right?
So when you were at this stage and you were, you know, working your job, your regular job, and you got interested in marketing, what were you doing to progress that? Were you doing like research at night when you weren't at your regular job, or what kind of things were you doing to get more involved or smart?
Yeah, I was reading a lot of, you know, kind of success oriented books, business books. I was going through various, you know, training programs online, learning about websites, learning about SEO, all that stuff. And, you know, I don't really consider that stuff a waste of time. Like I was doing all that stuff and I wasn't really taking action, which was on me. Right. But I think learning all that stuff and doing those things I needed that. Like once I was actually started taking action, all those skills that I had been just sort of almost treating like a hobby, like came into play. Right. So I don't, you know, I think there's a balance there of like, how do you have to find that balance of consuming new information and improving yourself and getting better. But again, like you mentioned in the beginning, the whole key to that is taking action and getting out there and getting in the arena, right? Because I know, and I forget how we were talking about this, I think maybe on one of our calls, one of our internal calls with Cameron, is like, now that I've been in business and doing things, and I go back and reread some of these books that are considered like business classics, like I have an entirely different view of them and I get much more out of them because I'm actually taking action and I can apply them to things, right? And I can see like, that's why this thing I didn't work out, because I didn't do this, you know, need to make a note to make sure to do this, or this is a strategy we can bring in. So I think that's the recipe, right? The recipe is learning and doing. And it's crazy because you say that and you think, well, of course it is. Like everybody knows that. But if everybody knows it, why doesn't everybody do it? Like I certainly couldn't do it. Like if you'd have told me, Tom, that's how you get successful is you learn and you do, I'd have been like, yeah, of course. But I wasn't actually doing it. Right. So yeah, it's a tricky thing. But that's it. That's my shout out for Paige. That's all I wanted to share my screen for.
Well, the other thing too, though, that I want to mention is that, you know, I think I think a lot of us beat ourselves up too, though, and you kind of are in a way here because we're kind of taught in society today to think or to go get a job like a 9 to 5 job, like that's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
Only to find out after you do it for a while it's a pretty grueling thing, and you don't want to do it forever, which is weird, right? It's kind of counterintuitive. Like why are we programmed to do that, to go out and that's what we should get. That's the goal that we should have. So when you're in that position, you're kind of like feeling bad about it at some point. Like, I'm not doing enough, or why am I not doing something better? But in reality, that's kind of what we're programmed to do. Like a restaurant manager position is a great job. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But like apparently not. Like apparently it's tough, and you could be doing more. And we talked about it in our coaching video that I shot, or our application video, where most people are, they're employed, right? The cash flow quadrant, the rich dad, poor dad thing, right? Most people have jobs, they're employed. The next tier for that are people that own jobs. These are people that are specialized. They're the doctors, they're the lawyers. They get paid more than people that are employed. Most of them have to go to college. They get, you have to be really smart. But then there are people that are business owners too, right? Like that's the next tier of things. People that are business owners, where you have systems and teams that help you to, build businesses, actual businesses. And that's kind of the layer of where I found myself to be happiest. And I think you as well. I think most people, most sharks certainly know that that's where they want to go, but I don't think it's, I kind of beat myself up too about having working in the automotive industry for a long time. But in reality, like, I know why that happened, right? Because my dad was in the automotive industry. Like it was the next thing for me to do. It was the path for me. Right. But I don't know. I wish it were different.
Well, and when you try to break out of those things, like the people around you don't understand it, right? Like they don't get it. They don't know why you try to do something that doesn't have security built in. And two, I think when you start to wake up and start to break away, people, whether they admit it or not, are jealous because they want to do that too, but they're scared. They have all the same fears you do before you start. And when you start to break away and do that, like you really start to see the difference of how, quote, regular people are and entrepreneur type people or people that own businesses, because there is a pretty stark difference in the way they operate and the things they do. And it's hard for people that aren't in that to even understand that, right? That's why entrepreneurs like to hang out with other entrepreneurs. High performance people like to hang out with other high performance people, because those, like, you get it. You've both been there and you're like, oh yeah, we totally get this,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Totally right. Nothing. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, one thing here, because I know we'll do a little more question and answer here in a minute, but we have our What's Tom Reading section. And so this is actually a book that I read a while back. I'm not reading it right now, but I'm not finished with the book that I'm reading. But we've talked about it. I think we've talked about it before on here, but I think it's a book, if you haven't read, you should probably go check out. It's called the Miracle Morning. There's a bunch of different ones. This is the Miracle Morning for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And there's just the Miracle Morning, but this guy, Hal Elrod, right? It's all about really about waking up earlier to change your day. And what the reason I brought this book, because I was just talking to Nick before we started this call, and I was like, so I get up at 6 o'clock every morning. That's been like my time to get up. And this past week, though, I've had to get up at 5:30 because we have things going on and I have stuff to do and there's things that I want to do, like go to the gym and things like that. So I've had to get up 30 minutes earlier. And I was telling Nick how even it's like getting up 30 minutes earlier though, I don't know what it is about my brain that is just like, ugh, like I just dread it. Like I dread setting the alarm 30 minutes earlier. There's nothing good about it. Even though repeatedly, time after time, every time I do it and I get more done or get whatever it is I need to get up at 5:30 to get out of the way, I feel better. And I'm like, so glad I did it. I'm like, I did it this morning so I could go to the gym. And if you ask me right now, it's like, man, I'm so glad I got up and did it. But last night before I went to bed, I was like, oh, I got to get up at 5. Like it's just this thing. And so a couple of the great things that I got out of the Miracle Morning are just little tiny habits that you can use to overcome that feeling, you know? So even though you may go to bed that way at night, when you wake up, you just do certain things to overcome that. One of them is like not having your alarm close to you where you can hit snooze, like putting it across the room. Another one that I do every morning is like, as soon as I roll out of bed, I go and I brush my teeth. And like, I thought, well, that sounds kind of hokey, but it really wakes you up. Right. And so if it's a day that I'm going to go to the gym, I actually wear, I wear the shorts that I'm going to wear to the gym when I go to bed so that I already have them on when I wake up. Right. So I roll out of bed, I brush my teeth, splash water on my face, put on my rest of my workout clothes and go to the gym. If it's a day that I don't do that, then what I have to do is roll out of bed, brush my teeth. I also drink a full glass of cold water. That helps get your system going too. And then I get right in the shower. And it's like, by the time I'm out of the shower, I'm awake, right? Like I'm awake and ready to go. And, but those are all things and techniques that I learned out of this book. And so I think it's really good. And it really is amazing the difference just getting up 30 minutes earlier can make in your day. It's crazy. Yeah. Like you think, well, like how would that make a big difference? Well, like now that you can get up 30 minutes earlier, it's like, what do you do with that 30 minutes? You know,
that is a really good book. That's one of those books where you can, you read, you pick up some things and like you were talking about earlier, like you can read it again later and you pick up more stuff. I feel like that's kind of been my experience with a couple of the classics, right? Like the 4-Hour Workweek. Like I remember reading that book in the beginning and being like, this guy's talking about outsourcing. What the hell is that? I can't outsource anything. But then I opened it up again like a year later and I'm like, I can get to chapter 5. I know what he's talking about now. I'm actually doing this stuff. I had to put it down again because eventually it got to a world of where, you know, beyond me. But yeah, those are the really good ones.
Yeah. So that's the book for this week. And Cameron put we set up, so you guys know, we've set up a special page on offlinesharks.com. It's offlinesharks.com/books. And you can go on there and you can see all the books that we've talked about on the show and other places that we recommend on different topics, things that we've gotten value of. So maybe you can check those out.
Jeff said that you must not have any pets if you need an alarm clock to wake up.
My dog is the laziest dog. Like literally, I will get up, shower, and he doesn't even move. He doesn't want to do anything.
Jeff, I have a French bulldog, and my fiance for some reason agreed to watch somebody else's French bulldog. So they brought her over, and she's been here for the past 4 days. So we have 2 dogs, right? And then yesterday, she also agreed to watch my brother's. That we have 3 dogs, 3 bulldogs running around the house. Tom and I were trying to make like coaching calls yesterday. And these 3 bulldogs are running around, they're like snorting and drooling. They're just, oh man.
I was sick. I was like, what did you start a wayward home for like French bulldogs?
They're so loud and they're like shuffling around. You can hear their feet on the hardwood floor and oh man, I have to get rid of one.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I see Mark said, here, I'll put this up here. Mark said, small success story. Current client I have had for a year has referred me to her father. The FIT with the father was image editing. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with the father to discuss a new website for his custom shoe business. That is awesome, Mark.
Wow.
Way to go, man. Way to go. Yeah. Jason also said, I can't thank you guys enough for coaching me into that world of outsourcing.
Great topic.
Yeah, it is a great, it's a game changer. I know everybody says that, but it really will open your eyes when you realize how easy and you can build a team without putting out any money and have people that can do stuff for you. It's really amazing. I know we're actually running a coaching. We're doing a private coaching with a real small group of people where we're taking them through that whole process of how we do that over 6 weeks and giving them all of our job templates and all that stuff. And I know we're trying to keep that class really small because this is really something like you can read about it and get information that way, but it is really a lot easier to do it and get proficient at it when you have somebody that's done it that you can ask questions to and stuff like that, right? So that's why we did this as a coaching program versus putting out a product. But I think Cameron sent out an email today with some Q&As on that. And if any of you guys are interested, you can still put in it's an application process because it's a lot of hands-on time from Nick and I. There's, email access and phone access and all that stuff to us through this process. So, it's not inexpensive, but it's also not like, it's not $5,000 or anything like that. So, and I think we have 2 or 3 spots left. So it's filled up pretty fast. So if any of you guys are interested in having us go take you through and show you how to build a team, and this is the key point to it, is we are able to get a team in place without putting out any money up front. And so we show that process, how we do that, how we build that relationship, how we leverage that into doing projects and then bring those people eventually onto our team. So,
well, I have a question. So who here, we've got about 40 people with us on this Facebook Live, which is an awesome show. I think that this thing has really grown and I think it's pretty fun.
It is a lot of fun.
But anyway, we got about 40 people here, right? So who here put a say me in the comments if you are currently doing everything yourself, like you're doing all the sales. Anytime businesses come to you, you have to be the one to actively go out and get it. You're building all your websites, you're doing the SEO. Put a me in the comments. And the reason I ask that is because I used to do everything myself too. And I know Tom used to do everything himself. And actually, when we first started hanging out, it was because we started working together, because we got to a place where we just couldn't do everything ourselves anymore, and thank God that we had each other to be able to start collaborating with. And it's like I was talking about earlier, where I was reading the 4-Hour Workweek, right? Like many of us have. But there was a disconnect in between me and that book. The reason I couldn't get past chapter 5 when he started talking about outsourcing was because I didn't really get it. I didn't really, even though there was like a blueprint there in the book, like I still didn't get it. I still didn't trust that I could go out and find somebody in the Philippines to do something for me for a small amount of money and charge more money. And I think there's a fair amount of people that have that same skepticism. And I don't think that it's not realistic. I think it's totally realistic. Like when you hear of all the benefits and the dreams that come with outsourcing, it seems too good to be true. I'm right there with you. And I remember Tom and I after we started working together for a little bit, and we started to get more sales and more customers. And, Tom was going to BNI and bringing in a lot. And we were at this stage where like, I was losing my mind just building these websites and doing these things. And I remember we were driving back to my house one day and we're like, man, how can we get some help to do this? And you were like, there's a guy I know who's in the Philippines he talks about outsourcing. Maybe we could call him. And I was like, yeah, let's call him. Let's call anybody. Let's do whatever we can. But that really was the day that I remember really trying to figure out how to make it work. And since then, you guys, we've been doing it for years now, and our process has become another level of successful. We've learned a lot along the way, but more importantly, we've learned a lot of the things that you don't want to do. You know, how to not get burned, how to hire the right people, where to find them, how to pre-qualify them. And one of the most important things that Tom said is how to get people to get on your team without actually putting any money down and up front. So that's really what the coaching program that we've mapped out for 2020 that we're taking applications in now. So if you guys haven't submitted an application, we're going to do a last call for applications, actually, because we've been doing this for a couple of days already. We have a bunch of people that have already joined. We've got, I think, a pretty awesome group already kind of
really good.
So this is the.
Yeah, and I say while you're putting that link in there, because John did make the comment. He's like, hey, I think we've all been stung at some stage with outsourcing, and that's definitely been the case for Nick and I. Like, not every hire we've made has worked out, and we've had to deal with all those problems. And that's what I'm talking about with, like, that's why I think for this particular skill, and this is a skill, right? That's why I think it's important to one, not only learn it from people that are doing it, but also you want that access where you can, get them on the phone or email them questions as you're doing it, because we've built things into our process now that weed those people out. But like you want to be able to ask, and get and get immediate feedback on what you're doing, so that, cause it is a little, you're not really sure in the beginning. So that, again, that's why we did it as a coaching program versus doing like a full-blown course on outsourcing or anything like that. But I'll tell you, Nick is absolutely right. There's a really great feeling when you know that you don't have to depend on anybody else, right? Like when you know that no matter what happens, you're able to find somebody that can do the work for you. Like you may not want to offer local SEO today, but 6 months down the road, you're like, a client comes to you and they're like, hey, can you do my local SEO? When you know the skill of finding team members, you can tell them absolutely and not even break a sweat. More than likely, you can already have somebody in the wings waiting that you haven't hired yet, but they're just there waiting, and they're good. You know what they're going to charge. You know what they do. You've already vetted them, and they're just there, right? And so when that happens, you can go, oh yeah, and you just reach out to that person and you bring them on, and now you're using the money from your project to fund your team, right? And a lot of our team members started out that way and eventually grew into full-time team members. One even grew into Nick's operation manager, who we're going to bring on, I think, in the first week of the coaching. She's going to come on and you get to hear what her day's like, what her job looks like, what she does for Nick, all those kinds of things. And, of course, we don't just cover the fulfillment side. We're going to talk about bringing salespeople on, which is something Nick's doing right now at this very moment. And we're also going to talk about the management of all that, right? Like communication and managing, and how do you deal with people in different time zones and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really great, it's a great program. So yeah, Jason, if you can get us a testimonial, we'd love it, man.
Well, Jason was in our first round of coaching for this program. We've actually refined it a little bit more since that last round, but I think Jason he already had some success, a good amount of success going on, but he was, for the most part, still doing everything himself. And I think he said, I'm curious just to see, since the coaching, Jason, if you're still on the call, tell us how many, do you have a lot more people on your team now? Are you still doing everything yourself? What's the progress been? How's it? Yeah, see, he said, awesome program. It changed my life. Yeah. because it really, your mindset changes once you have this skill where you can bring in more help. It's a skill. It's truly a skill. So,
yeah, awesome. Well, man, this time zipped by. You guys had some great questions and great feedback. I saw in all the comments there, and we're super excited. You guys carved out some time to spend with us on Friday. Nick and I love doing these. Like, we love interacting with you guys in this way. So, yeah, Jason said he's up to 40 people.
Wow. What? 40 people? Jesus.
Wow. That's a lot, Jason.
Yeah.
Nick will have to reach out to you. Maybe we'll bring him on as a guest. Maybe we should bring him on as a guest.
Oh,
you're in the Jason, you're still in the you'll see like the new people coming into the private coaching Facebook group.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but you can always post some things in there if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we can get you on as a guest to talk about what you're doing and how you scaled up and all that stuff.
What's that saying about with great power comes great responsibility?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the situation we have here with you, Jason.
Yeah.
Teach a man to fish, right?
Yep. That's what you want. Like, right. Like, why did we do? I read something the other day that it was like, it just so hit home for me. The reason I want to be an entrepreneur, like the big why is I want to be self-sufficient. I don't want to depend on anybody else. Like, I don't want, I don't want to have to, I want to be able to do those things. Like, I don't want to have to rely on somebody else to do that stuff for me. And, yeah, that's one of my big reasons for doing this. I wish I could find the exact quote because, man, it hit me so. Hold on, maybe I can find it. Hold on, because it was like I read it and I was like, well, if you do this, we'll end with this. Where does he say it?
Hey, we forgot to give something away. First person to put the age of Tom's daughter, it's her birthday today. How old did Paige turn? Wins an
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're waiting for the comments to come in. So this was the quote. It says, he's basically talking about some things. And he said, these things, they're like little action steps, things that you do on your own, right? And he said, they're not here to see whether you can repeat like a parrot the material given to you in each chapter. This is exactly what you do not want to do. You do not want to repeat or memorize at all, because then you would be using my thoughts instead of your own, and you would then have to come back to my answers to see whether you were right or wrong. Then you would always be dependent on somebody else. And the whole purpose of education is to make you dependent on no one except yourself, to give you the proper tools, effective enough and logical enough to do the thing right yourself and know that you're right without asking anyone else at all. And I like that quote. I would substitute education with entrepreneurship, right? The whole purpose of entrepreneurship is to make you dependent on no one except yourself. And I don't know, I read that and it really just hit home with me. So
that's a good quote.
Yeah. You don't want to be dependent on anybody else. Like, I want to be able to do this, right? And know that I can do it. What's that?
Yeah, I'm.
Yeah,
me.
I mean, yeah, that's you. That's you. He's building his little fortress there, a couple neighborhoods over.
So Christopher, congratulations. Paige did just turn 13. If you could, Cameron will reach out to you. We can send you a gift. Thanks for showing up, hanging out with us, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us for the entire duration of this call. I hope that we, had some good information for you today. If you have any other questions and stuff that we've talked about, or if you're watching this recording live and you have any questions about the coaching program or whatever, leave them in the comments below. Tag Tom or I, and we look forward to seeing your interactions over the week, over the month, and next time we see you on this live show.
Yeah, we'll be here next Friday. Same Shark Channel, 3 p.m. Eastern. So enjoy the rest of your Friday, guys. Aloha, everybody.